Ramblin Man here. Alright, so if you remember back when Biden was going through campaigning, what little campaigning he did, he talked about, I believe it was March of 2020, he talked about that he was going to appoint the first black woman justice in the Supreme Court. Now, fast forward to now when we're looking at a couple things. And I'm sorry about the sun right here. I'm sorry if it takes away from the whole video, but I really want to talk about this. So when he was talking about this, he's talking about the first black woman in the Supreme Court. Did he already have somebody in mind, or was it somebody that they told him he was going to do? Or they just told him, hey, you're going to appoint someone when he was going through, and he probably didn't know who. Because now the question is, which woman is it? Which woman of color is it? How about that? Because right now you have Stephen Breyer, and he's about to retire because they kind of pushed for him to retire. Then before he could announce his own retirement, someone else did it and said, oh, Breyer's going to retire. So what they were talking about before, about 6 months ago, was trying to get him to retire or get out of there because they want to be able to put a Democrat in as a justice. And they knew that he wasn't, you know, they didn't want him to die or something after the fact once there's another Republican in, because then what would happen? Yep, they'd put a Republican in there and they couldn't have that. So the Democrats had already planned on trying to get him to retire. They kind of pushed him till he retired. Okay, so he's retiring. And today I heard that Biden is going to have someone appointed, the first black female justice appointed by the end of February. Now, here's the thing. At what point, if this were someone said, hey, we want to have a woman appointed, then isn't that discriminatory against men? So now, not only that, they're being discriminatory against all other races and against men. It's going to be a black woman. Why? So what you're telling me is, in March of 2020, almost 2 years ago, you already had in your mind to put a black female in there as a Supreme Court justice. Not even sure who that person was, and not necessarily the best person for the job, just only because she's a black female. It's kind of the same way they got Kamala Harris in as vice president. Because why? Because she's a black female. Way to go. We got the first black female vice president. And she sucks. Now, there's also talk, though. Now, let's just bring that back around, because now they're talking about what if, because a lot of people like this idea, they go through and they have him appoint Kamala Harris as that Supreme Court justice. Now, let me tell you what it does. It does two things. All right? The first one is you get Kamala out of there because she sucks as a vice president. Not that she'd be any better as a Supreme Court judge, but, hey, you know what? I would not put it past the Democrats to do something else stupid, because this is kind of their whole MO, how things have gone along. So once that's done, it also leaves the gate wide open for Biden to be pushed out of office due to the 25th Amendment and the whole fact that, you know, his cognitive issues. If you haven't seen them, then you're not going to see them. And then who does that leave open? Nancy Pelosi would be next in line to be running this country. And that, my friends, is scary as crap. It's ridiculous. So if this were anyone else, let's just reverse this a little bit and say it was Republican, and we decided we're going to put the first we're going to put a white man in as the justice, as the Supreme Court justice. We're going to put a white man in. Well, could you imagine the uproar people would have, because you're eliminating women from that, and any person of color, only white men. Could you imagine that? So for them to say 2 years ago they're going to put the first black woman in, It doesn't say we're going to put the best justice we can that's a Democrat, because if you want to put a Democrat in there, put a Democrat in there. But just to put a person in there because they are black and a woman rubs me wrong. It's just ridiculous. So, I mean, if that person happens to be black and a woman, the best person, great. But don't do it just because she's black and just because she's a woman. I think I've said enough on this. I'm just perplexed. I'm really in shock that people are okay with this. I mean, for real. Like, if this were Trump, could you imagine? That's the whole reason we have Biden. We have Biden as president because people did not like Trump. Not because he wasn't doing a good job. They weren't even judging on how he was doing his job. They were going off the fact that his name was Trump and because he did mean tweets. That's why you can't really have Trump run again, because you have people voting against him just because they don't like him. This is a mess. It really is a mess. And the fact that we have Joe Biden because people don't like Trump is sad. And you cannot convince me that all those people voted fairly. And he had the most turnout of people voting in the history of America for him. 81 million votes. Can't convince me otherwise. I'm sorry. But it is what it is. And this is just more of the Biden administration screwing more stuff up. Put whoever you want as the Supreme Court justice, but do it because that's the best person for the job. Not because you want to be the person that put in a black woman. That's great. It didn't work out so good for us as far as the vice president. If you wanted to put a black woman as a vice president, you could have done Candace Owens, only she's from the wrong party. Oops. Dang. Hey, what can I say? We're screwed. Ramblin' Man out.